Well, hello everyone. Don Garman here again. December 2025. Happy belated Thanksgiving. I hope everyone had a nice time and got some downtime with family members or the people of your choice. Um, I'm going to keep the first part of this video very brief because the third part of it, we actually have a special guest star, a client who's going to be talking about something that's been a bit of an emerging business line for us in 2025, and I think it will persist into the future. And so we'll have a brief conversation about how he views it and uses it. And so hopefully that's helpful to some of you that have been, I would say, maybe a bit on the fence or in some senses think this might be too good to be true. So we'll get into that in the third piece. So first piece is 2026 outlook. 2025 is pretty much in the books. It will go down as a fantastic year for everybody who watches these videos. I'm super, as I said last month, proud of that, and grateful that we've been on the right side of some pretty big calls and big outcomes this year. That dovetails specifically into point two, which is 2025 will mark the end of some very generous tax treatment relative to charitable giving. So it will get a little less, we will get a little less out of our charitable gifts to donor advised funds. We call them DAFs around here, going into 2026 and beyond. And because I know that if you have been a client of our firm for the last year plus, you have some nice appreciated securities in your taxable portfolio. And particularly if you've had a good year outside of here, either in income or other income that you may have earned, and you wish to have the maximize your charitable donation deduction, then what we will advise you to do, and many of you have already done, and this will be another year where this will be of maximum benefit. If you give appreciated securities to a DAF, a donor advised fund that your family has set up, then you get the full fair market value of that deduction versus selling a stock that you have to pay a capital gains tax on, where you might only donate the proceeds after tax, or you pay the tax and end up donating more than you probably intended to. So instead of that, it's much better to give the appreciated securities to the DAF, take the full deduction, and then you can move cash back into the account and repurchase the stock, as I often do, or not. So depending on what your intent is. So what does this require? You have to have some charitable intent. You have to have some ideas about what you might want to do with your funds relative to charity. If you don't have that, then this isn't probably going to work very well for you. But we know you have appreciation in your taxable portfolio. If you also want tax advantages, then contributing appreciated stock to a DAP is a great thing to do. Do it in 2025. I'm pointing this out on December 1st because we really have this week to start the process of creating a DAP if you don't already have one. Even funding a DAP, we really only have until mid next week. If we're flooded with requests the last week of the year to set up a DAP, it will be too late. Not because of us, although that too, but because Schwab will be inundated with people who are trying to do this last minute. Let's not be those people. If you think this might apply to you, you can reach out to Jackson or myself or anyone else and see if you might be a good candidate for this. It's a great idea, and it will be a less attractive tax strategy in 2026 and beyond. So dovetailing from that topic to our special guest. So I will admit him into this meeting and then introduce him. Hello, Kevin.
Hi Don, am I muted?
You are not muted. I can hear you, which is great. Means our audience will also be able to hear you. So I didn't even start on your introduction, but I did tease that you would be coming on, and I'm going to explain why. So Kevin and I have been great friends for a long time, and he has been a great client of our firm for a long time also. And along the way, Kevin has had a very wonderful, successful journey, and as people have over the years, has accumulated various varieties of income producing real estate along the way. And we've noticed, and I've hinted at this many times in these videos, it's not uncommon in our client base that people have accumulated properties over the years that are intended at various levels of success to provide income. Some are working and some aren't. And so I was thinking about this, Kevin. You know, we've said, you've heard me say along the way, and I say it internally from Mirador's perspective, that if we're doing our job properly, our firm exists to make the lives of our clients more profitable, more simple, and more fun. And I think this concept that you have clearly embraced, and I think to my eye, you've embraced it at it for its best and highest use and in a better way than many other people use it. And I'm going to ask you to explain how you came to that conclusion and why you've decided to kind of embrace this. And it might fall under the profitable and simple category of what you find appealing about it. But what I'm alluding to, without having spelled it out so far, is that's this 1031 exchange, which is a like kind property exchange where you can take something you have a gain in that's been income producing real estate, instead of selling that real estate and paying the capital gains tax and then taking the proceeds to do something else with. In this instance, we can combine the IRS tax code 1031 exchange, in our particular use case, using a Delaware statutory trust, which is a mechanism to, in essence, buy fractionalized institutional grade real estate. And so, Kevin, do you want to talk about kind of what you saw in this? And as soon as this hit the tuning fork of your business brain, you've sort of been running with it. And so we're happy to try to keep up with your pace. But why don't you explain what you saw in it, and we can start a little discussion of what has been important for you about this. And thank you for joining us.
Yeah, of course. Of course, Don. Thank you. I think to begin, I think where I would love to share with the listeners is that I grew up a real estate guy, meaning Kathy Comerford, my mother, was so anti stock market, so anti stock brokers. Uh, I don't think there were RIAs in her time, but if there were, she'd be anti. Okay, so
Fair.
my parents owned a business, and as they were owning the business, they were accumulating real estate along the way to the tune of, my mother was north of 20 properties at one point, and swore that that's how she made her wealth. That's the only way to make wealth, and so I come with that background. So it's kind of interesting that the journey that you and I have been on,
Yeah,
because
truly.
when we first met 20 years ago, we met working out in the gym together, and you wanted to go to lunch, and I said, "Great, Don, let's have lunch." And we talked about just the journey that we were going to be on together in this community, and it's amazing how that journey we talked about 20 years ago has really come to fruition.
Truly.
Uh, and I'll get to the 1031 stuff, Tom. I
No, good.
promise. I promise. I
That's
promise.
great. I appreciate it.
I need to share with people that I was uh, pretty anti, and you probably saw it in the lunch we had together. I was anti
Yeah.
investing any money with Mirador, and so I started with a small amount of money. Probably, Don, you correct me if I'm wrong. 3 years after that lunch, because
Yeah,
I
that
said
sounds
in
about
that
right.
lunch, I said, Don, let's just you and I be friends first.
Mhm.
Let's just work out together, and then we'll see where it goes. Well, lo and behold, 3 years later, we I put some money with you. I began to understand what the difference was between working with Mirador and working with what my mother had been used to, which then translated to what I got used to, which was, I got a statement from these guys out of New York that
Mhm.
were handling money for us, and I never talked to them, and I never understood why they were going up so minimally,
Mhm.
etc. And that was my again,
Mhm.
that was really my education and knowledge in what the stock market was. And so again, like my mother, I was anti.
Hmm.
So when we
But
went
you
to
kept
lunch,
learning. But you kept learning along the way. You've always been curious at all of this stuff.
for sure I
Yeah.
listened.
Hmm.
For sure I think our friendship
Hmm.
led me to listen further and pay more attention. And the guy that could do more pull-ups than me, I had to listen a little bit to him. I was pissed. I was so anyway, we came around. I came around, began to invest some money in the stock market, but more so than anything, began to see how this worked.
Hmm.
And when I say how this worked, how a Mirador with or a relationship with Mirador worked, and Don, this is not a plug or a commercial for Mirador. It purely is just how much of an impact Mirador has had on me, my family. You were the one that provided me with the investment banker that then successfully allowed my company to have an exit. You were the one that got me involved in that. You've got me involved in multiple different investments, Don. So you've got you're the reason that my mother ended up putting a whole bunch of money with you. Believe it or not, unbelievable.
Hmm.
But let's talk about the 1031
Hmm.
stuff because again, I was suited as my mother began to transition out of being her own property manager
Hmm.
with what was 11 properties about almost a year ago today.
Hmm.
Really
Wow.
almost a year ago today. We began the discussion around DSTs, these Delaware statutory trusts, these
Hmm.
1031 exchanges, where you take the let's just give you an example, the $1.1 million in a residential property that we sold here in Dublin from my mother. And I was a
Hmm.
partner with my mother
Hmm.
only because she put me on it
Hmm.
um, through the years for estate planning purposes.
Hmm.
So so us selling her property, we took that $1.1 million in value and rolled it into the
Hmm.
DST and received anywhere between a 4.5 to 4.8% return, which in
Hmm.
fact turned out to be double
Hmm.
what she was getting from income off that property
Hmm.
when you take into account the property tax she was
Hmm.
paying, when you take into account the home warranty that she paid for, when you take into account the insurance, unbelievable, the insurance on these properties now doubled on it
Hmm.
turned out to be double the amount of income. So I
And
saw that.
before you move on, I think this is an
Yeah,
important point. You have now seen many months of the checks that come into your account. You don't have to go fight somebody for them. You don't have anybody, trying to kick it off a bit, and it's just so
simple.
easy.
To
Yes.
speak
So
to the
sorry.
simple part, no, to speak to the simple part of your business, whether it's, dealing with Amber, you make things simple, and this is simple.
Mm.
This is simple. So much so that, again, I'm going to sound like a flippin' commercial. This is bad.
I appreciate it, by the way. I don't think
uh,
it's bad.
we subsequently have now rolled four more of my mother's properties
Hmm.
into a DST, and this has all been within the last year.
Hmm.
We are receiving rental income on two of those additional ones. The other two are still in process. It does
Hmm.
take about 30 to 60 days, nah, not 60 days, but 30 days after the sale happens for everything to cycle through. So if you do decide to do one of these, know that there is a delay
Hmm.
with regards to inland and then seeing it on your
Hmm.
Mirador black diamond.
Hmm.
I mean, but I'm able to see what I'm able to see is I'm able to see the investment or the 1.1 million that was the value of the real estate. I'm able to see that on my black diamond Mirador
Hmm.
statement. So it's almost like I've transferred real estate into an investment account when reality though I still own a part of a retirement home, a
Hmm.
data center,
Hmm.
a uh,
Correct. Yeah.
college apartment complex. So these are
Hmm.
these are what you meant when you said institutional
Correct. Yeah.
properties that we now own a very small percentage of. But
Yeah.
if it's $100 million data center, I own
Hmm.
1.1 million of it. So
Hmm.
1%. When I
Hmm.
say I, my mother
Hmm.
and I,
Hmm.
At the same token, again, I cannot stress the fact that we are receiving double on a monthly basis than what we were receiving from the rental income.
And I would love you to address this. And you're a rigorous guy. You hold me, as you should, to a very high standard. And it's all so two things I would love you to comment on is the difference between using this exact technique, 1031 with DST at a brokerage firm where you would pay a commission and through an RIA, where in fact your proceeds get grossed up for the lack of commission, right? So you
For sure.
actually end up putting more money to work. And has any part of this not worked exactly as we explained it would, even though the timing, doesn't always land immediately? I mean,
Yeah,
all
no,
the income, right? Yes.
yeah. So that's the interesting part is, um, let's say you sell the house for $1 million. You actually get to invest a million 60,000. That becomes the amount that's invested that you receive the 4.5, 4.6, 4.8. The reason is there's different investments. The reason I'm saying it's 4.5, 4.8, there's different investments that I've chosen from, and it's just the level of risk that you want to take,
Correct.
whether you get 4.5, 4.8, 4.9, whatever it
Mhm.
is. But mine have fallen between 4.5 to 4.8. And as Don said, because I'm doing it through an RIA, it almost seems, I swear to God, too good to be true.
That was exactly what I was addressing. This is what we hear from people is, wow, it cannot be what you're explaining. That sounds too good to be true. And I've been trained, if it's too good to be true, it's not accurate.
That's my
So
mother. That's Kathy Comerford right there.
yeah,
That's Kathy
yeah.
Comerford. So the 1,060,000, it is. I have seen it. I've seen it
Mhm.
on the statements where we sold the property for 1 million. The actual investment was the 6% on top of that you would pay in commission. And Don's right. I'm a commission watcher. I'm a guy that, hey Don, what am I paying on this? Let me just be clear.
Mhm.
And Don is always, hey, he's totally good to explain it, but that's just who I am. I
Mhm.
need that explanation.
Totally.
And I think the transparency that you've always shown, Don, and your willingness to open up, the your books,
Hmm.
with your own private and personal stuff
Hmm.
is, to me, what attracts me the most to
Hmm.
Mirador.
Hmm. I
The
love that.
transparency, the openness, and you know what? Good things aren't cheap, and cheap things
Hmm.
aren't good.
Love that. I love that. I want to make one more little point on this because it 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 is some of the back room stuff that happens before we get to have a conversation with you, because part of what we do here is we go out to all of the 1031 DST vendors and we look at all of the deals. And so when we're showing something to you, we have already kicked out things that are promising what we don't think is deliverable, or they're on the low side. And so we're trying to find that sweet spot where we can have a conversation around, with the risk you're willing or should be willing to take, here's the right area for you to be looking at. So there's a lot more work that goes into it before we've ever gotten to have a conversation with you about what we think you might want to do.
Yeah,
So that's
and
the
and
part
you
that no
and
one
you
sees.
present and always either you or Jackson
Mm-hmm.
is always presenting a couple of different options, even a couple of different 1031 dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
That, do I want to go down this road, and
Mm-hmm.
or do I want to, there's different things, and you'll learn that when you
Mm-hmm.
dig into this. But it's a worthwhile thing, especially if you have a mother or you have property that you don't want to also deal with tenants. That's
Yeah.
another big thing. I mentioned all the costs doubling,
Mm-hmm.
but there's also the fact that the simplification of what my mother has to deal with her properties. She was regularly getting phone calls from the tenants,
Mm-hmm.
having to do repairs on the house. I mean, it's just all the things that come with
Mm-hmm.
owning property and being a landlord.
Yeah.
Those go away.
Yeah.
Those go away. Now, I'm I'm 8 months into this, our first one that we rolled, and but I don't think I'm going to be getting any calls from data center tenants
Yeah.
or college tenants. It's just it's all handled through inland
Hmm.
and through that process.
Hmm. I think that's well said. The last piece I'm going to leave it on, and it's very important if people, and again, if anybody wants to have this conversation with us, please do. But the key piece of this from a IRS perspective is that Kevin or Kevin's mother in this example not receive the funds themselves. These funds, once the property is sold, have to go to a qualified intermediary, which again, we work closely with. And so there's a whole lot of emails that go on behind the scenes. And to Kevin's point about simplicity, he gets the DocuSigns at the end of the line, that he can review and look over. But a lot of work has been done behind the scenes to make sure all of these filings with the IRS are right and correct. Because the worst case scenario from Mirador's perspective is we miss one step and a building that got sold becomes a taxable event. That would defeat the entire purpose of this. So
Yep.
I
And
that's
they're
yeah.
really good giving you heads up as soon as the building's sold. I get an email that says, "Hey, you got 45 days.
Mhm.
Know that we're working on this." Um, and yes, I will tell you that Mirador working with Inland or IPX, which is that intermediary, has made it so much easier. I've had to push back documents to Mirador and to IPX saying, "Hey guys, I'm used to working with Mirador. I don't want to fill out paperwork." And so what happens is I push it back to to Mirador, and God bless Amber, she completes it for me, sends it to me, so all I need to do is sign it. So yeah, that's just kind of how I've come to utilize Mirador, and it works great. And I appreciate everything that you and your team have done, Don.
Thank you. And it gets to the last piece of this, which is, in 2026 and beyond, you and I've talked about this behind the scenes. Mirador has really changed what we offer and to whom we offer it. And we're really functioning as a multifamily office for some really inspirational and successful families. And so we will end up with, two or three dozen families over the next few years that we really work really closely with. And I think that's been a nice it's been so wonderful. It's simplified things around here to know who you are and who you speak to. And so I owe you a lot of gratitude for that as well, for holding us to a high standard and helping us get to a point where hopefully we do make your life more profitable and more simple and more fun. And so,
Check, check, check.
love it.
Seriously, I chatted with a really nice client of yours that was looking to come on board about a week and a half ago. He's and I loved it. I told him that I was such an anti stockbroker RIA guy before I met Don. I told him, I'm like, Don had a huge hill to climb. And I say that because if anybody wants to talk to me about this, I have no problem, Don. Look up
That's
my
nice.
cell number, 925-872-7326. 925-872-7326. Feel free to call me.
Mm.
And if you want to talk in detail, happy to, I mean, it's what I'm happy to do for you, Don.
Kevin also likes a good text. So if you want to get in
I
touch with him,
do.
text him first and
Yes.
then you can find a time. I've taken enough of your time. So much gratitude. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your wonderful family. Thank you for taking your time to do this. Any words from you mean more by definition than they do from me anyway, for all the reasons you said about the stockbroker RIA stigma. So yes, I know Kevin's
Uh,
sincere when he offers his time generously to anybody who wants to talk more about it. And if you want to hear more about whether it works for you, you can reach out to us and we'll do the simple analysis. And so, thank you, buddy. I'll see you soon.
love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Thanks, Don.
Thank you. Okay. Bye
Take
bye.
care, buddy. Bye.